Chapter 985. Reaching the first layer of life and death realm makes a huge difference. It had been a long time since Yi Chun had felt a huge increase in his basic strength. Previously, although his cultivation base had advanced by leaps and bounds, reaching the level of 1,000 years, it was only an increase in quantity. Unless it was several hundred years or 1,000 years, he wouldn't feel anything, and the increase in strength wouldn't be obvious. But now, Yi Chun could clearly feel that his strength had increased by a large margin. Compared to painstakingly studying martial arts for a few months, it was undoubtedly much easier. Of course, Yi Chun also knew that this was the result of accumulating strength. If he had just entered life and death realm, even if Yi Chun didn't have to worry about being annihilated, he wouldn't have had the foundation to cultivate to the first layer. After all the Zhen Yuan had been converted into a pure Zhen Yuan, the interior of the Dao Gate suddenly produced a powerful suction force. As soon as this suction force appeared, the outside world underwent a huge change. With Yi Chun as the center, boundless yuan qi of heaven and earth converged toward Yi Chun. At first glance, it looked like a nebula, and Yi Chun was the core of the nebula, unceasingly devouring it. Tsk Tisk, you've reached the first layer of life and death realm so quickly, worthy of being the Sword Dao genius who defeated the Sword King. The palace spirit waved its hand, and as if the restriction of the palace had been released, even more yuan qi of heaven and earth poured in, joining the nebula and rapidly strengthening it. After an unknown amount of time, when the nebula was completely devoured, Yi Chun's aura gradually stabilized. At the same time, a boundless might burst out from Yi Chun's body. Peak of the first layer of life and death realm. Yi Chun opened his eyes, his gaze like lightning. After reaching the peak of the first sky of life and death realm, Yi Chun shockingly discovered that his Zhen Yuan cultivation base had already reached the 2,000-year level. In other words, this breakthrough had directly increased his cultivation base by 900 years. Why would he need to spend supreme great spirit stones, or Zhen Yuan crystals, to increase his cultivation base? He could directly increase his realm. Just as I had guessed, because of your martial arts rank and mental state, you were able to reach the peak of the first sky of life and death realm right away. If your cultivation base was a bit higher, you might even be able to break through to the second sky of life and death realm. However, it is also a good thing to increase your cultivation base slowly. It will help you build a solid foundation for your martial art. Dao sects also needed the nourishment of true essence. Continuous breakthroughs would put too much pressure on Dao sections. Many people would rather raise their cultivation realm slowly than risk breaking through. Thanks a lot. Although the temple spirit looked like a child, Yi Chun did not dare to neglect it. He cupped his fists at it to show his gratitude. No need to thank me. Remember, don't leak the condensing method of this martial art. If something happens, you'll regret it. Back in the day, the condensing method was accidentally leaked, and countless life and death kings fell. It took many years for Elysium to recover. The temple spirit reminded Yi Chun. Yi Chun will not joke around with Elysium's future. You can rest assured. Yi Chun nodded. All right, let's go. The temple spirit waved its hand. Walking out of the titled king palace, the door behind them closed. Perhaps it was Yi Chun's misperception, but the moment he walked out of the titled king palace, Yi Chun felt the Dao Gate in his body suddenly become unstable. A string of sparks appeared on its surface, and a dark flame appeared. Could it be related to condensing the Dao Gate? Yi Chun looked pensive. The news of Yi Chun obtaining the title of Sword King had already spread in the circle of life and death kings. However, only a few people under life and death realm knew about it. Returning to the Yi family, there was one thing that needed to be done, and that was to establish a sect. As early as half a month ago, the Eternal Sky sect had already arrived at True Spirit Continent, and were currently residing on one of the peaks of the Yi family. Chun'er, are you really going to establish a sword sect now? Yi Tianhao was somewhat worried. Yi Chun smiled and said, Father, I'm not establishing a sword sect now. I'm going to establish the Fallen Dust Sword sect. Fallen Dust Sword sect. Didn't you want to establish a sword sect before? Yi Tianhao let out a sigh of relief, but at the same time, he asked curiously. That was my idea before. But after coming out of the titled King Palace, my attitude has changed. Establishing a sword sect could indeed make the sword sect and Yi Chen famous in the world. But there would be endless troubles. When he was here, perhaps no one would dare to mess with the sword sect. But, after he left, the sword sect would undoubtedly become a thorn in the eyes of many other sword sects. No one would be happy to see such a huge mountain on top of their heads. They would definitely think of ways to make the sword sect decline, or even destroy it. If a sword sect wanted to be powerful for a long time, other than having powerful strength, it would also need to hide its strength and bide its time. It could not be too stubborn, or else it would be easy to break. This was an unchanging truth. Besides, this was also related to the change in Yi Chen's vision. He never thought that he would not be able to walk out of Elysium. When he walked out of Elysium, he would no longer have to face the powerful warriors of Elysium, but the powerful warriors of countless worlds. Establishing a sword sect would not be worth mentioning at all. There was no need to make everyone unhappy. Have you heard? Yi Chen is going to establish a sword sect. What's the name? I heard it's called Fallen Dust Sword Sect. Fallen Dust Sword Sect. Fortunately, I thought he was going to establish a sword sect. In the Sky Sword continent, the news of Yi Chen establishing the Fallen Dust Sword Sect had spread like wildfire. Almost all the Life and Death Kings knew about it, and they all seemed to be very concerned. Fallen Dust Sword Sect. Yi Chen, I owe you a favor. Hearing the news, the Blue Cloud Sword Emperor revealed a faint smile. If he were in Yi Chen's shoes, he would certainly have the intention of establishing a sword sect, and would most likely put it into action. With strength and status, establishing a sword sect would be perfectly justifiable, and there would be no need to be afraid of anyone. However, he had never expected that Yi Chen would not establish a sword sect, but the Fallen Dust Sword Sect. In this way there would not be any suppression. Fallen Dust Sword Sect. Good name. On the same day, the Snowflake Sword Emperor also received the news. On the Spirit Cloud Peak, the sounds of weapons clashing could be heard continuously. One moment, it was like a storm, and the next moment, it was like a stream. Only when he got closer did he realize that it was a fight between two youths. Of these two youths, one was dressed in black with a cold expression, while the other was dressed in white. His appearance was ordinary, but his eyes were gentle. Although the two of them were dressed differently, and their appearances were vastly different, both of them had a sword embroidered on their sleeves. It could be seen that the cold-looking youth's swordsmanship was extremely sharp. Each of his moves was filled with killing intent. The most shocking thing was that his swordsmanship contained a faint trace of sword intent. It was precisely because of the existence of this trace of sword intent that his swordsmanship was exceptionally sharp. Even from afar, one could feel the coldness on one's skin. Compared to the grave and stern youngster, the sword arts of the white-robed youngster were not as sharp as the grave and stern youngsters. Neither had he comprehended sword intent. Their cultivation bases were more or less the same. However, no matter how the grave and stern youngster attacked, he could not break through the latter's sword aura. His sword aura was like a spring breeze, but also like a fine drizzle. Upon closer inspection, it did not seem like a spring breeze, nor was it a fine drizzle, but rather a gentle sunlight and the fragrance of plants. The sword arts of the grave and stern youngster filled with killing intent seemed to be entangled by countless fine threads. They became slower and slower, losing their destructive power and dissolving into nothingness. On the side, two young men and two young girls were watching the battle. Although Lung Xinghan had only become a disciple of Big Brother half a year ago, I have to admit that his sword arts talent is a bit better than mine. He has comprehended sword intent so early, and has pushed the lone peak of 13 swords to this level. Yin Jianhui, I am afraid that even you would not be able to compete with Lung Xinghan. Yi Xian looked at Yin Jianhui. Yin Jianhui was watching the battle seriously. Hearing this, he opened his mouth and said, "It does not matter if I am able to compete with fourth brother or not. What is important is that you were not able to compete with me 3 months ago. Pfft, you can only beat me by 1 or 2 moves at most. Don't make it sound like you are suppressing me." Although Yi Xian said that, he was very depressed in his heart. There was always someone better than him. His sword arts talent was indeed very good, and his big brother was quite satisfied with him. But compared to Yin Jianhui, even if he did not want to admit it, he knew that he was not as good as Yin Jianhui. In the beginning, he could beat Yin Jianhui with only a few moves, but as time went on, Yin Jianhui grew at an amazing speed and caught up with him. Yin Jianhui was not that bad. After all, there was only one of him. But what made him lose confidence was the 3 new disciples of his big brother, one more powerful than the other. The second disciple was the young man in white, named Dongfang Bai. In other aspects, he was about the same as Yin Jianhui, but in terms of sword arts comprehension, he was even better than Yin Jianhui. His big brother had said that his achievements in sword arts were about the same as Dongfang Bai. As for the third disciple, it was Huang Sume, who often hung out with his sister Yi Xiaoxiao. She was 1 year younger than him, and was his big brother's only female disciple. She was also very talented and smart. She could infer many things from one instance, and was the smartest of his big brother's disciples. And just half a year ago, his big brother took in another 4th disciple, named Leng Xinghan. He was the young man in black, who was evenly matched with Dongfang Bai. This Leng Xinghan's talent was extremely outstanding, and he was at the peak in all aspects. Not only did he comprehend sword intent, his comprehension of sword arts was not inferior to Dongfang Bai's. In terms of monstrous talent, he was almost the number 1 disciple of his big brother. Junior brother Leng is still a little lacking. I think he will lose to second senior brother in 10 moves. Huang Sume's face was like a peach blossom. She was already quite charming at such a young age. Ding ding dang dang. After 9 moves, just as Huang Sume said, Leng Xinghan lost. Not bad. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Big brother. Master. Yi Xian and Yi Xiaoxiao quickly turned their heads and called him big brother. The others also called him master, including the cold-looking Leng Xinghan. Touching Yi Xian's head, Yi Chen gave him an encouraging look, and then looked at Dongfang Bai and Leng Xinghan. The 2 of you have made obvious progress. Xiao Bai, you have a strong understanding of sword arts, but sword arts are used to kill people. Blindly dispelling them is not the right way. Xinghan, you have comprehended the sword intent, but don't think that you can defeat Xiao Bai with sword intent. A swordsman's greatest strength is not how powerful his sword art is, or how strong his sword intent is, but how he uses it. You haven't reached the limit in using the sword intent, and you haven't completely transformed it into battle strength. Master is right. Dongfang Bai quickly lowered his head. Leng Xinghan also listened attentively, turning his head to look at Yin Jianhui and Huang Sume. A faint smile appeared on his face. It had already been a year since he had founded the Falling Dust Sword sect. During this time, he had taken in 3 new disciples, all of whom were from the Sky Sword continent. First disciple Yin Jianhui, second disciple Dongfang Bai, third disciple Huang Sume, fourth disciple Leng Xinghan. Among them, the first disciple Yin Jianhui had the most spiritual qi, the second disciple Dongfang Bai had a strong understanding of sword arts, the third disciple Huang Sume was exceptionally intelligent and had an exquisite heart. Fourth disciple, Leng Xinghan, was the most monstrous one. He was the best in every aspect. Chapter 986. Master, I'm going to spar with junior brother Leng. Can you give me some pointers? Yi Chen's arrival made Huang Sume's eyes brighten. Hearing this, Leng Xinghan curled his lips. If you want to spar, spar with senior brother or second brother. Don't drag me into it. Yi Chen faintly smiled. You're too smart for your own good. It's better to spend more time on comprehending sword arts. In the past half a year, your improvement isn't too obvious. Although you won't be at the bottom with your intelligence, it's only temporary. As time goes on, you'll slowly fall behind them. How could Yi Chen not see that his disciple worshipped him very much? Master, I'll try my best. Huang Sume blinked her eyes and carefully looked at Yi Chen. She, Huang Sume, was a person who thought highly of herself. In Gale region of Sky Sword continent, she was a peak sword genius. It should be known that more than 90% of the people in Sky Sword continent trained in sword arts. Being able to stand out among them was already extremely difficult, not to mention reaching the peak. Many people believed that her figure would inevitably appear in the 10 Swords of Sky Sword continent in the future. As for the current 10 Swords of Sky Sword continent, Huang Sume admired them, but not worshipped them. She was confident that she could also reach this level. However, after hearing about Yi Chen's achievements, she felt a subtle sense of worship for the first time. This couldn't be blamed on her. Yi Chen's growth path was too shocking, surpassing the ancients and dazzling the contemporaries. Within the same generation, he was unrivaled. Especially after Yi Chen obtained the title of Sword King, Huang Sume knew that be it in the past or present, no sword artist could surpass Yi Chen. If the ancient Sword King was a legend among sword artists in the past, then Yi Chen was a new legend among sword artists. When a new legend appeared, others could only look up to him. This was a legendary sword artist who had never been defeated, and she was fortunate enough to become his disciple and listen to his teachings. Moving his gaze away from Huang Sume, Yi Chen said, "The four of you all have a great chance of reaching life and death realm. However, life and death realm is not the end, but a new starting point. Before that, you need to build a good foundation. Only with a strong foundation will you have more potential to break through." As someone who had been through it, Yi Chen was naturally clear about the effect of the foundation. Although it would not be able to turn into battle power in a short period of time, it would still affect you in the long run. It was the reason for having a deep foundation. Xing Han, you have already comprehended the sword intent. You can go to the Valley of Sword Intent to comprehend the sword intent at any time. But you must not be greedy and advance rashly. With that, Yi Chen said to Lung Xinghan, "Yes, master." Even the cold-blooded Lung Xinghan could not help but reveal a surprised expression after hearing Yi Chen's words. The Valley of Sword Intent was created by his master with one sword strike. It contained an extremely powerful immortal sword intent, which was extremely beneficial for comprehending the sword intent. His master had also said that the reason why he could have his current achievements was because he had comprehended the sword intent in the natural moat gorge. The sword intent in the gorge was also the immortal sword intent. Lung Xinghan was pleasantly surprised while the others were envious. The basic requirement to comprehend the sword intent in the Valley of Sword Intent was to have already comprehended the sword intent. Without the sword intent, one would not be qualified to go. Seeing everyone's expression, Yi Chen smiled and said, "The Valley of Sword Intent will not run away from there. Once you have comprehended the sword intent, you can all go." In the past year, Yi Chen had already raised the immortal sword intent to the 6th rank. Just like the destruction sword intent, the two sword intents were at the same level. He had once again achieved the sword intent resonance and the sword soul resonance. His improvement speed was gradually increasing, and he believed that in the near future, both of them would definitely break through to the 7th rank. The Valley of Sword Intent created by the 6th rank immortal sword intent would not dissipate, and could exist for at least 500 years, just like the natural moat gorge created by the Battle Emperor. Suddenly Yi Chen frowned. "Big brother, what's wrong?" Yi Xian asked. Yi Chen waved his hand. "You guys continue to practice." With that, he took a step into the void. "Senior Yuan Emperor, are you saying that the seal of the True Water Palace has loosened?" In the void, Yi Chen opened the High View painting and summoned Yuan Emperor's clone. Yuan Emperor said, "True Water Emperor was a titled monarch before me. Just like you and me, he had condensed a Dao Gate and cultivated to the 2nd layer of life and death realm. However, the True Water Palace was destroyed 15,000 years ago, and True Water Emperor disappeared 25,000 years ago. He suddenly reappeared in the year of destruction. I suspect that the destruction of the True Water Palace is related to him. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see him." Yuan Emperor was the last titled monarch who had left his mark on the Emperor's Scar Steel. Before him, no titled monarch had appeared in the past 10,000 years. Clearly, there was a gap of 10,000 years between him and True Water Emperor. However, after hearing Yuan Emperor's words, Yi Chen realized that in Yuan Emperor's era, True Water Emperor was still alive and had returned. Could it be that he had crossed the path of death and lived for 100,000 years? But How could the destruction of the True Water Palace be explained? One question after another filled Yi Chen's mind. When the True Water Palace was destroyed, I and the other monarchs went to investigate, but we didn't find anything. Just in case, I joined hands with the other monarchs and sealed the ruins of the True Water Palace, leaving behind a spirit accumulation scroll with my clone sealed inside. Later on you obtained the scroll. According to what you said later, mysterious Yin King came back to life and turned into another life form. I guess that there should be a huge seal inside the ruins, an extremely frightening seal. It was precisely this seal that caused the destruction of the True Water Palace, and the truth to be concealed. Yuan Emperor said word by word. Feeling that the matter was thorny, Yi Chen said, I promised Senior that I would solve the crisis inside the ruins. Since the seal is starting to loosen, it's time to fulfill my promise. Yuan Emperor said, You must be extremely careful on this trip to the True Water Palace. Moreover, I don't feel comfortable letting you go alone. That Yan Qingxian is not as strong as you, but her methods are very mysterious. She might be able to turn the situation around at the crucial moment. You can bring her with you. Senior Xianhou? To be honest, Yi Chen did not want to bring danger to others. He had a feeling that the danger inside the True Water Palace was definitely very frightening. How could Yuan Emperor not know what Yi Chen was thinking? He said, The seal hasn't been broken yet, so it's the easiest time to solve it. If the seal is broken, it will be a great calamity for the alien races. If you go alone, it's very likely that you won't be able to solve this crisis. Without experiencing the alien race's calamity, you don't know how difficult it is to kill some of the alien race's experts. You might be able to defeat them, but to kill them is as difficult as reaching the heavens. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many seals existing since the ancient times. If you could kill them, why bother sealing them? There will be endless troubles in the future. Once you lose the chance and let them escape, the consequences will be unimaginable. Senior, are you saying that the True Water Palace is actually sealing the alien race's experts? Most likely. Can I invite other kings of Elysium? After asking, Yi Chen suddenly felt that something was wrong. Yuan Emperor shook his head. It's better not to alert them. Otherwise, there will be too many variables, and the war might break out earlier. What you lack now is time. Senior, you are right. Making up his mind, Yi Chen went to Xian Sect in Sky Martial region on the same day. The True Water Palace. Xianhou frowned. I've heard of the strange rumors about the True Water Emperor, but I didn't expect it to be true. But it's not safe with just you and me. It's better to invite the Demon Flower Emperor. Her demon flower can absorb any kind of energy and suppress the enemy's power. This way, we will have more confidence in solving this crisis. In the rich light ocean span on the desolate sea, the demonic flower emperor's expression was grave as he said, Back then, the Flash Demon King told me about this place, and I went in as well. The mysterious Yin King, who came back to life, was already killed by me. The Flash Demon King was the human Demon King, who had chased after Yi Chen. Like Yi Chen, he had also entered the True Water Palace. Later, he was injured by the resurrected mysterious evil king, and only recovered after a long time. Therefore, the Demon Flower Emperor entering the True Water Palace didn't make Yi Chen feel strange. But the Demonic Flower Emperor's tone changed. The mysterious Yin King's strength was at most at the level of a mid-stage king. With my strength, killing him should have been easy. However, the evil and powerful Yin Qi on his body made him extremely hard to kill. As long as the Yin Qi was not extinguished, he would be able to return to his peak. I used the demonic flower to completely absorb his Yin Qi before finally killing him. Xianhou said, The Yin Qi is not extinguished. This is a trick of the evil spirit race. You have to be careful this time. The evil spirit race was a foreign race that had invaded Elysium. Although it was not as threatening as the demons to Elysium, it was not to be underestimated either. Seniors, let's go down. Yi Chen opened the silver vertical eye on his forehead. As far as his eyes could see, the True Water Palace was still there. Compared to many years ago, the ominous qi inside the True Water Palace had become even denser. If an ordinary person were to come here, they would probably turn into a lunatic on the spot. Even Sea of Soul Realm experts might suddenly die upon being infected by this ominous qi, or even suffer a cultivation deviation during cultivation. Such a horrifying evil qi. It was Xuanho's first time coming here. Just like the Demon Flower Emperor had said, the inside of the tower was completely empty. The mysterious evil king was no longer there. Using his soul eye, Yi Chen soon found the second tower. On the top of this tower, there were 3 words: Black Smoke Tower. It is the Black Smoke King of the 13 kings of the True Water Palace. When they reached the top floor of the Black Smoke Tower, before the 3 of them even entered, a thick black smoke blew towards them. This black smoke was cold and evil, and it was filled with resentment and baleful aura. Under the impact of this black smoke, the ground and walls were covered in ice. The black smoke seemed to be solid, and it occasionally turned into the image of a struggling ghost face. Pung! The lid of the coffin opened, and a twisted black human figure jumped out. Chapter 987. Ha! Demon Flower Emperor roared, and formed a seal with both of her hands. A black demonic flower quietly blossomed, and swallowed the twisting shadow, before suddenly closing up. Pung 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 pung. The closed demonic flower bulged unceasingly. The twisting shadow was most likely the resurrected Black Smoke King. After all, he was a life and death king when he was alive. After being enveloped by the demonic flower, it was impossible for him to not have the slightest bit of resistance. Especially the dense evil power. It actually increased his survivability, surpassing his previous life. Unfortunately, he was facing the Demon Flower Emperor. Demon Flower Emperor's demonic flower could absorb any form of energy, even the evil power. In terms of evil, demons were not inferior to evil spirit race. In terms of darkness, demons were even above evil spirit race. Being enveloped by the demonic flower, there was no way he could make a comeback. The frequency of the bulging of the demonic flower became lower and lower. On the other hand, the demonic ripples emitted by the demonic flower became more and more powerful. The result could be easily imagined. Ding! When there was no movement inside the demonic flower, a pair of claws filled with sinister evil qi shot out and landed on the ground. Unfortunately, this extreme-grade artifact has already turned into an evil weapon. Xianhou shook her head, feeling a bit regretful. This evil weapon can be used by my clansmen. I'll take it. The evil power on the claws had been mostly absorbed by the demonic flower. As for the remaining evil power, it should be fine as long as demonic power was used to cleanse it. Of course, the evil power on the claws had long since fused with the claw's origin. Demon Flower Emperor had absorbed the majority of the evil power, making the claws might inferior to the majority of extreme-grade artifacts. It was barely stronger than a pseudo-extreme-grade artifact, but it was already enough. Many life and death kings didn't even have a pseudo-extreme-grade artifact. Leaving the Black Smoke Tower, the 3 entered the 3rd tower. Inside the 3rd tower was the resurrected Rainstorm King. Rainstorm King's strength was a lot stronger than the Black Smoke King's, and he probably had the strength of a peak mid-step king. However, as soon as he appeared, 99% of his yin qi power was destroyed by Yi Chen with a single sword attack. The second sword attack turned him into ashes. Yi Chen, who had the 6th-step destruction sword intent, was also the nemesis of these evil powers, and was even purer than the Demon Flower Emperor. The Demon Flower Emperor absorbed their power, while Yi Chen destroyed their power. Unknowingly, the 3 of them had eliminated the 9 monarchs and arrived at the 11th tower. That Blood Refinement King's strength is already not inferior to the yellow-robed old monster that you killed. Adding on his inextinguishable yin qi, he can contend against an existence that is twice as strong as the yellow-robed old monster. These 13 kings of the True Water Palace are each stronger than the last. I wonder how strong the next Golden Bone King will be. The Blood Refinement Monarch was a monarch of the 10th tower. His strength was comparable to the current monarchs. Even the Devil Flower Empress couldn't completely absorb the evil energy of the Demonic Flower Empress in one go. After all, in a situation where the difference in strength wasn't too great, the Demonic Flower Empress wouldn't allow the Devil Flower Empress to absorb his energy. It was just like how the Devil Flower Empress couldn't do anything to the Zhan Tianxiang Emperor, even though the Zhan Tianxiang Emperor was much stronger than the Blood Refinement Monarch. When they arrived at the top of the Golden Bone Tower, the three's expression changed slightly. At this time, the Golden Bone King was no longer a living being, but a dark golden skeleton with a cold white flame burning in its eye sockets. Waves of evil soul power attacked the three. In terms of evil power, it was more than twice as strong as the Blood Refinement King. 8 trigrams extermination. Yichen didn't hesitate. The Sky Scorpio sword floated above his head and divided into 8, then 64. The 64 sword images combined into an 8 trigram sword array. As soon as the 8 trigram sword array took shape, a frightening extermination aura covered the sky. Under the amplification of the destruction sword intent, it reached an unprecedented level. During the battle with the Sword King in the titled King Palace, Yichen had comprehended the state of no sword in the hand and no sword in the heart, greatly increasing the strength of his soul. This meant that the might of his sword control art had also greatly increased. Moreover, he had also cultivated to the peak of the first layer of life and death realm, greatly increasing the purity of his Zhen Yuan. With the combination of the two, the current 8 trigrams extermination sword art was countless times more powerful than the original 8 trigrams extermination sword art. Puff! Before the Golden Bone King could make a move, the 8 trigram sword array swept across his body. Like a candle being blown out, the Golden Bone King's body instantly turned into dense yin qi. This yin qi was torn apart by the 8 trigram sword array, and was immediately extinguished by the sword qi, as if it had never existed. How did your sword control arts might increase so much? Demon Flower Emperor asked in a strange tone. Yichen thought for a moment and honestly said, "My soul's strength has increased a bit. Moreover, I've obtained the true cultivation method of life and death realm, raising my cultivation base to the peak of the first layer of life and death realm." True cultivation method, the peak of the first layer of life and death realm? Not only Demon Flower Emperor, but Xianhou also curiously looked over. Yichen knew that he had to explain to the two. Purely accumulating cultivation base is not true cultivation. In life and death realm, there are also realms, divided into 9 layers of life and death realm. To step into the first layer of life and death realm, one must condense one's own Dao Gate in one's Dantian. With the Dao Gate as the foundation, one can raise one's realm level by level. However, the laws of Elysium are somewhat incomplete, not as complete as the outside world. Therefore, the true cultivation method has not been leaked. Otherwise, forcibly condensing a Dao Gate would cause the backlash of Elysium's laws, causing the Dao Gate to instantly collapse and turn into ashes. But how did you do it? Demon Flower Emperor wanted to ask how Yichen could cultivate to the first layer of life and death realm. Yichen bitterly smiled. After I defeated the Sword King's consciousness body, the palace spirit told me the true cultivation method. However, he warned me not to impart it to others, lest many life and death kings fall and harm the true spirit continent's Yuan Qi. So that's how it is. Demon Flower Emperor and Xianhou looked pensive. I didn't expect life and death realm to have 9 layers. If one can cultivate to the 9th layer and refine Jin Yuan 9 times, as long as one's martial skills are not too bad, one can easily surpass 10-star battle strength. Xianhou sighed. Yichen nodded. Xianhou was right. Yuan Emperor was only at the peak of the 2nd layer, but he already had a peak 7-star battle strength. If he could raise his realm to the 9th layer, surpassing 10 stars would be a piece of cake. He wouldn't even need to reach the 9th layer. He could even surpass the 8th layer. Of course, this was mainly because Yuan Emperor's martial skills were too powerful, and his martial will was also powerful. Even if he was only at the peak of the 2nd layer, he would be able to contend against a 5th layer life and death realm expert. Although life and death realm experts were suppressed too much by Elysium, not only would their realms be suppressed, but their bodies would also be injured. For a 7th layer life and death realm expert, apart from being suppressed by 2 layers, it was enough to show the might of Yuan Emperor. No, of Elysium's invincible figure of each generation. The 9 layers of life and death realm, The higher one goes, the harder it becomes to cultivate. Apart from having a high rank and a high mental state, one's Tao gate also needs to be nurtured for a long time. None of these are dispensable. If one is not careful, one's Tao gate might be damaged, and one's realm might drop, forcing one to cultivate from the beginning. Although I don't know about the situation outside, I can imagine that there shouldn't be many people who can cultivate to the 9th layer. Breaking through in life and death realm was completely different from breaking through under life and death realm. If one failed to break through under life and death realm, one's realm wouldn't drop. On the other hand, breaking through in life and death realm carried a huge risk. Some people might break through from the 8th layer to the 9th layer, and might even drop 3 or 4 layers. Under such circumstances, the number of people who could reach the peak of life and death realm would be reduced by 99%. It was easy to explain why demons and other peak experts didn't come to Elysium. Having their realm suppressed didn't matter to them, but having their origin damaged was the same as taking their lives. Golden Bone King's weapon was a huge blade emitting an evil qi, which was collected by Yi Chen. He wanted to forge supreme-grade swords in the future, and the more supreme-grade materials the better. Although these were evil weapons, they were still of good quality. Breaking them down would give him a lot of supreme-grade materials, so it was better to be prepared. With the death of Golden Bone King, there was only one tower left. As for True Water Emperor, he should be at the center of the 12 towers, where the evil power was the strongest. Among the 12 kings under True Water Emperor, Sky Destruction King is the strongest. According to historical records, he's more powerful than the other 11 kings combined. I'll first reverse the environment of Sky Destruction Tower. Xuanho's expression turned grave as her body floated up. In the next moment, an ancient gate appeared above Xuanho's head. This gate rotated once, and an unfathomable power immediately spread out from it. What a marvelous and mysterious way! Demon Flower Emperor's eyes flashed with curiosity. Using his soul power, he sensed that the void around Sky Destruction Tower had been reversed. The powerful evil power seemed to have a hole, and the air inside the ball leaked out in all directions. This place became a different kind of vacuum world. The evil power was getting lesser and lesser, and the essence of heaven and earth was getting more and more. Roar! At this moment, a wave of earth-shattering baleful energy gushed out from the bottom of the Annihilation Pagoda. Boundless evil energy gushed out, and a distorted figure wrapped in white cloth scuttled out. He grabbed out with his hand, and a white cloth hand the size of a small mountain appeared in the void, grabbing towards the ancient door above Mysterious Queen's head. Extinction! The 8 trigram sword formation above Yi Chen's head had already formed, and it attacked at the white hand. Boom! 2 different kinds of extinction power clashed with each other, clashing against each other. Break! Pulling out the iron blood silver blue sword, Yi Chen's body flashed. When he appeared again, he was behind the figure wrapped in white cloth, and the figure's body was split into 2. You all deserve to die. All of you deserve to die. I'm not willing. I hate you. The white-clothed figure's inextinguishable yin qi far surpassed Golden Bone King's. Yi Chen's frightening sword strike merely destroyed a portion of his power. His severed body fluttered like sand, and the white-clothed figure condensed in another direction. His power didn't seem to have been consumed much. His voice was brimming with resentment, making this place seem even more ominous, like hell itself. 6-star battle power. Yi Chen's expression turned serious for the first time. Chapter 988. Although the 8 trigrams extermination sword technique was not Yi Chen's strongest killer move, the increase in cultivation realm and the strength of the soul allowed this sword technique to have the attack power of a 5-star overlord. In addition, the destruction sword essence could restrain the evil energy. The only explanation for the King of Sky Destruction's ability to block this move was that his combat power had reached the 6-star level. Putting aside the fact that he had a 6-star combat power, the King of Sky Destruction's inextinguishable yin energy was also so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. Yi Chen's sword attack just now had only destroyed a trace of his power. Devouring Blood Flower. Before this, The Demon Flower Emperor had already started to weave seals rapidly. When the King of Sky Destruction's body had just condensed, a blood-red flower that was as big as a mountain swallowed the King of Sky Destruction in one gulp and tightly wrapped him up. Shortly after, it shrunk at a shocking speed and finally shrunk to the size of an ordinary house. Crack. Unfortunately, the King of Sky Destruction's strength was too strong. He tore the devouring blood flower in half with his hands. The white cloth fluttered as he pounced towards the Demon Flower Emperor at an extremely fast speed. Flower Shield. The Demon Flower Emperor had rich combat experience. When she saw the King of Sky Destruction pouncing towards her, she did not panic at all. Clusters of black flowers condensed and compressed in front of her, turning into a flower shield that shone with a black radiance. Boom! The King of Sky Destruction had a 6-star combat power after all. Although the flower shield had the absorption ability of the demon flower and could absorb energy damage, it only lasted for a moment before it was completely penetrated by the King of Sky Destruction. The twisted palm that was wrapped in the white cloth grabbed towards the Demon Flower Emperor's head, as if it wanted to take her head off. Courting death. How could Yi Chun watch the Demon Flower Emperor perish? He executed the orbital steps and instantly appeared beside the King of Sky Destruction. The iron-blooded silver-blue sword seemed to tremble slightly, and countless folded sword lights enveloped the King of Sky Destruction. Poof, poof, poof. The King of Sky Destruction's eyes were ferocious as he forcefully resisted Yi Chen's sword move. He was still prepared to forcefully kill the Demon Flower Emperor. However, this void essence slash of Yi Chen came from the Yuan Emperor. It was the most miraculous move. The folded sword lights not only sliced open the King of Sky Destruction's body, but also isolated the space. The King of Sky Destruction's palm passed through layers of overlapping space, but he was unable to reach the Demon Flower Emperor. He was like a drowning old man trying to grab onto anything on the water surface in vain. I'm going to eat you alive. The King of Sky Destruction turned his target to Yi Chen. With a bang, his body exploded into a ball of majestic Yin Qi. The Yin Qi was like a whirlwind, freezing the void and sweeping toward Yi Chen, who was close at hand. I am immortal. Switching between offense and defense, the iron-blooded silver-blue sword held horizontally in front of his chest. Yi Chen's eyes became calm and solemn. A powerful immortal sword will seeped out of his body and protected him. Whoosh! The Yin Qi engulfed Yi Chen and brushed past him, appearing behind Yi Chen. On the other hand, Yi Chen was enveloped by a layer of white holy light that was invisible to the naked eye. Outside the holy light, gray smoke kept bursting like dust. The immortal sword will had advanced to the 6th rank. In a battle of the same level, Yi Chen was almost invincible. It was absolutely impossible for the King of Sky Destruction to hurt him. Damn it! The King of Sky Destruction's body was emitting green smoke. Previously, when Yi Chen had attacked him with a sword move that contained the Destruction Sword Will, he had not been injured much. At most, his power had decreased a little, which could be ignored. However, when he had brushed past his opponent's body just now, he had been seriously injured. Although the Immortal Sword Will was not as powerful as the Destruction Sword Will, when he had tried to invade Yi Chen's body, he had been repelled by the Immortal Sword Will and destroyed. Mysterious Way Freeze. An ancient door suddenly flew toward the King of Sky Destruction. It was Xianhou who had made a move. The King of Sky Destruction's eyes flickered. A pair of gray wings formed by dense Yin Qi appeared on his back. With a flap of the gray wings, he shot out like a shooting star, shuttling through the void. His speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to lock him down with soul power. However, he had underestimated Xuanhou's mysterious way. As the King of Sky Destruction dodged, the ancient door suddenly enlarged by 1,000 times. No, it should be said that the ancient door did not enlarge, but the space inside the door shrank by 1,000 times. The King of Sky Destruction's figure was like a speck of dust. No matter how fast he was always within the range of the ancient door. In a split second, the ancient door covered the King of Sky Destruction. The King of Sky Destruction roared again and again. His violent energy attacked the ancient door. Instantly, the ancient door was full of cracks, and it looked like it was about to collapse. Kill! This was a rare opportunity. Yi Chen held the iron blood silver blue sword with both hands and slashed out. The dark green sword screen ignored the space distance. With a flash of green light, the King of Sky Destruction's body was split in the middle. Before he could turn into Yin Qi and escape, a dark green light suddenly burst out, shining like a sun. Ah! The scream was earth-shattering. In the dark green light, a large amount of Yin Qi was annihilated. A distorted human face kept struggling, as if it wanted to tear apart the seemingly gentle, but actually violent and destructive dark green light. Unfortunately, its power was too weak. The dark green light was the power of water and fire, and a trace of it could destroy a mountain, together with the 6th-rank destruction sword essence. Not to mention that it was weakening now. Even if it was at its peak, it would not be able to bear the consequences. Puff! The last trace of Yin Qi was annihilated, and the King of Sky Destruction's voice stopped. No wonder he is the first king under the Emperor of True Water. If he had not turned into an evil spirit, it would have taken me several times more effort to kill him. The evil spirit body had indeed greatly increased the King of Sky Destruction's immortality. However, he had encountered Yi Chen, who had the Destruction Sword Essence and the Immortal Sword Essence, and was completely restrained. Of course, if it were not for Xianhou and the Demon Flower Emperor, Yi Chen would have had to spend more effort to kill him. The Demon Flower Emperor's Demon Flower had absorbed a lot of his power. Xuanhou's mysterious way had even reversed the environment, so that the opponent could not absorb any power. Finally, she had used the mysterious way to freeze the opponent. It could be said that the Demon Flower Emperor was not only the kind of king who became stronger the more he fought, but also one of the best teammates. With her around, as long as the opponent's strength was not too strong, she would constantly weaken them. As for Xuanhou's mysterious way, it could be said to be unpredictable. It was no wonder that when the Dragon King and Xianhou joined hands, they could kill the 9 Underworld Demon King, who had no way to escape and almost died. With the King of Sky Destruction's death, only the Emperor of True Water was left. The three's mood became a little heavy. The King of Sky Destruction was already so strong. They did not know how strong the Emperor of True Water, who could leave a mark on the Emperor's scar steel, was. They hoped that it was as Yuan Emperor had said. The Emperor of True Water, or that evil spirit expert, was currently at his weakest. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the 3 of them to defeat the other party. Buzz! In the center of the 12 towers, there was a dense fog. Suddenly, an extremely evil power burst out, like a huge stone thrown into a lake. Ripples spread out, and a chilly wind roared. But soon after, this evil power seemed to be cut off, turning into a rootless duckweed, and calmed down again. Yi Chen opened the silver vertical eye between his brows, and tried his best to look at the center of the fog. This fog was formed by dense Yin Qi, and it was very turbid. Through the fog, Yi Chen could vaguely see a few blurry shadows. Yi Chen tried his best to see the faces of the shadows, but the laws there were too chaotic. The sealing power and evil power were mixed together, and even the soul eye could not see through them. Closing the soul eye, Yi Chen slowly let out a breath and said, "Someone came here before us. Let's go in and see." Different from Yi Chen and Xianhou, the dense and terrifying evil power here did not make the Demon Flower Emperor uncomfortable. Of course, she did not like it either. Activating her protective Zhen Yuan, or demonic power, the 3 walked into the fog step by step. It was unknown how deep the fog was. It was like a surging sea. When the 3 of them entered, there was not even a splash of water. After about half a cup of tea's time, the fog disappeared, and the 3 of them came to a huge flat stone ground. In the center of the flat stone ground, there was a blood-red pattern, with a diameter of dozens of meters. The blood-red pattern was formed by countless ripples, and it also looked like the ancient character for water. How could the 3 of them not know that this was a seal? Beside the blood pattern stood 4 figures. Yi Chen and the other 2 all knew these 4. They were actually the Destruction Demon Emperor, the Golden Turtle Old Ancestor, the Black Fiend Emperor, and the Earth Demon Emperor. "It's you guys?" The 4 had already noticed that someone had come in, but they did not expect that it would be Yi Chen, Xianhou, and the Demon Flower Emperor. In fact, they thought that everything was foolproof. After all, their actions were very secretive, and not a trace of energy leaked out. On the contrary, the seal around the True Water Palace ruins prevented the energy from leaking out, which served as a cover. So you have all been possessed. After a slight shock, Xuanho's expression returned to normal. How did you know we were here? The Destruction Demon Emperor asked calmly. Yi Chen smiled faintly, with a sharp glint in his eyes. If you don't want people to know, then don't do it. Although he said so, Yi Chen also knew that if it were not for the Yuan Emperor's seal, and the Yuan Emperor's doppelganger beside him, he would never know that something had happened here. Since you are here, don't leave. The three of you stay. The Destruction Demon Emperor did not panic at all, and the corner of his mouth raised into a sinister sneer. Before the matter is resolved, we naturally will not leave. Yi Chen released the sword domain, which enveloped the entire area. Ha! The possessed golden turtle old ancestor roared, and a powerful domain burst out from his body. This domain was extremely evil, and it constantly attacked Yi Chen's sword domain. If we were outside, I might be afraid of you, but unfortunately, you should not have come here. The endless evil power here can be absorbed by us at any time, and our strength will multiply. The voice of the golden turtle old ancestor was sharp and thin, extremely ear-piercing. His gaze, with a lustful look, swept over Xuanho and the Demon Flower Emperor, and he sneered. I'll leave the three of them to you. Remember, don't let them escape. The Destruction Demon Emperor did not seem to have any intention of making a move. Waves of evil power condensed into runes, branded on the blood pattern, and eroded the power of the seal. At this moment, more than half of the blood pattern had been eroded, and gray mist escaped from time to time. Chapter 989. Don't worry. They won't be able to return this time. The Earth Demon Emperor's tongue was very long, like a snake's tongue. It could almost reach his ears. His eyes were no longer the original beast pupils. Instead, they were like the pupils of a hornet's nest, which contained countless compound eyes. Being stared at by him, Yi Chen and the other two felt like they were in a maze. Everything around them was getting further and further away. What a powerful eye technique. Xuanho raised her eyebrows, and a mysterious aura spread out. Under the interference of this aura, the illusion of the eye technique that was eroding reality was immediately forced out. What kind of realm is this? The Earth Demon Emperor stopped being careless. He wasn't good at fighting head-on. He was good at soul attacks and various illusion techniques. Although the eye technique just now wasn't his strongest illusion technique, it was very hard to defend against it. Moreover, it was extremely fast. Some kings who were stronger than him would fall into it if they were careless. 10,000 bugs, you've met your match this time. The Black Demon Emperor's body was emitting light black smoke. This smoke seemed to be spiritual, and it would transform into tentacles or palms from time to time, which was very shocking. As for the 10,000 bugs that the Black Demon Emperor mentioned, it was the Earth Demon Emperor. As the person who had taken over the body, his original personality had been devoured by them. The one who had taken over the Nirvana Demon Emperor was called Tian Xie. The one who had taken over the Golden Turtle Great Ancestor was called Jin Sha. And the 10,000 bugs was the Earth Demon Emperor. As for the Black Demon Emperor, he was called Xie Shou. Humph, she only broke my compound eye technique. Later, I'll let her know what it means to want to die. The 10,000 bugs that had taken over the Earth Demon Emperor's body sneered. He was very confident in himself. After observing the characteristics of the three's aura, it wasn't hard for Yi Chen to guess that the evil spirit that had taken over the Golden Turtle Great Ancestor's body should be a strong attack type. He was very strong in head-on combat. The one that had taken over the Earth Demon Emperor's body should be good at illusion techniques. As for the evil spirit that had taken over the Black Demon Emperor's body, it should be a strange type. He probably had some powerful evil techniques. Seniors, you can just support me from the side. Leave them to me. It was impossible for Yi Chen to let Xuanho and the Demon Flower Emperor take the risk. Although the two of them had unique abilities, their battle prowess was slightly lower. In a one-on-one fight, it would be difficult for them to win. If they supported him from the side, they would be more useful. You're courting death. Let me Gold Thug deal with you. If they were in the outside world, Gold Thug might not be a match for Yi Chen. However, in here he was fearless. With a loud roar, a dark golden metallic light erupted from his body. The light was extremely dazzling and filled with evil energy. As soon as it appeared, it immediately condensed into streaks of dark golden sharp blades. Like tens of thousands of arrows that shot out at the same time. They pierced through the air towards Yi Chen and enveloped Xianhou and the Demon Flower Emperor. Yi Chen's expression was calm as he unsheathed his iron-blooded silver-blue sword and slashed twice in the air. Ding! 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 Countless sounds of metal colliding broke out. It seemed like Yi Chen had only brandished his sword twice, but he had blocked all the dark golden sharp blades that were coming at him. The speed of his sword was fast, and the angle was accurate. It had reached an unbelievable and unpredictable realm. Even Xianhou and the Demon Flower Emperor were shocked. The most powerful swordsman since the ancient times. Even the ancient Sword King is not as good as him. He's really inhuman, the Demon Flower Emperor muttered in his heart. This kind of sword attack comes without any sign. It's without the heart or the sword. It has already surpassed the level of using the will or the heart to control the sword. Xuanhou's eyesight was much better than the Demon Flower Emperor. Although she wasn't a swordsman, it didn't hinder her understanding of swordsmen. According to what she knew, there were 3 kinds of sword attack realms for swordsmen. They were body control sword, chi control sword, and the highest heart control sword. However, what Yi Chen had just displayed had clearly surpassed heart control sword. Using the heart to control the sword intent meant that the heart would move, and the sword would move, making the sword heart bright. However, Yi Chen had just attacked without any warning, giving people a very abrupt feeling. It was as if the sword had already attacked before the intent had even moved. Thousands of dark golden sharp blades couldn't move an inch forward. It was as if there was a chi wall that extended far in front of Yi Chen, firmly protecting the 3 of them. Suddenly, Yi Chen flipped his wrist. As the sword light shot out, a trace of transparency appeared in the air. And Tianxia, who was occupying the Nirvana Demon Emperor's body, was undoubtedly the leader of the 4. He frowned as he felt a strong sense of danger approaching. He's really arrogant. As the thought flashed through his mind, transparent hexagonal glass appeared around Tianxia's body. These hexagonal glasses were embedded together, forming a seamless shield. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. It seemed that something extremely sharp had slashed the shield. However, the next moment, Tianxia's expression changed. There was a sword mark on his chest and blood flowed out. How is this possible? I clearly blocked it. Tianxia didn't care about such a small injury. What surprised him was how his opponent's sword chi managed to injure him. Even he only realized it after the fact. Moreover, he was 100% sure that his defensive barrier had completely sealed off the sword. Dense killing intent was released. Tianxia stared coldly at Yi Chen. He couldn't let this kid grow any longer. Whether he admitted it or not, this kid had already become the most troublesome person in Elysium. What a pity. The one who had unleashed this sword was Yi Chen. He didn't use Orbital Slash. Although Orbital Slash could attack through protective energy, its destructive power was slightly weaker, and it didn't have much practical value. He used Void Energy Slash. To a certain extent, Void Energy Slash could also ignore protective energy, and its destructive power was much greater than Orbital Slash. If it could hit the opponent directly, it would definitely injure him and interrupt his unsealing. Apart from that, the core of this sword was that there was no sword in the heart. The intent came later, and the sword came first. When the opponent sensed danger, the sword chi had already arrived. However, the opponent's protective energy had been activated too quickly. It seemed to contain mental power. With a thought, the defense was formed. Although it wasn't as good as Yi Chen's no sword in the heart, considering the distance between them, the difference in time was more or less offset. In the end, the sword chi was slightly faster. The front part of the power was transmitted to the opponent, and the back part was blocked by the shield. Evil God Barrier. Tianxia was corroding the blood seal, and he couldn't stop it. Luckily, he was prepared. He had placed many black crystals around the blood seal. Originally, he didn't plan on using them. He just wanted to prevent accidents from happening. But he didn't think that accidents would really happen. Yi Chun and the other two would find him. As the evil power surged into the black crystal, a black barrier rose up, enveloping the blood-red seal and the heavenly diabolism. Above the black barrier, a blurry figure condensed. Although the evil power was not as strong as the evil power in the blood-red seal, the difference was like heaven and earth. It was as if it really was the projection of the evil god. Pung pung pung. Yi Chun used his super-fast sword speed to continuously slash the black barrier. But it was like a clay ox entering the sea. He couldn't shake the evil barrier with the blurry image guarding it. Don't be arrogant. Seeing that Yi Chun didn't put them in his eyes at all, Wanzong was enraged. Evil power poured out of his palms, turning into countless black crows. These crows cawed loudly and pounced at Yi Chun. A strange scene occurred. When Yi Chun's sword chi slashed at the black crows, it went right through them, as if they didn't exist at all. It's an illusion. Yi Chun had a feeling in his heart. I will deal with his illusion. The mysterious queen had dabbled in many mysterious daos, including illusions. She used her Zhen Yuan to condense a mirror, which expanded rapidly until it seemed to connect with the void. Those black crows that didn't exist in the mirror became corporeal and disappeared one after another. In the next moment, the black crows rushed out of the mirror and pounced towards the myriad bugs. Illusion rebound. Damn it! 10,000 insects knew how powerful his illusions were. And even though he could deal with them, he was caught off guard and cut a sorry figure. Countless crows drilled out of his mouth, eyes, and even chest, and a heart-wrenching pain spread through his entire body. He lost control of his evil power and started to dissipate, greatly weakening his aura. Pung 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 pung. Without any reason, Yi Chun's heart started to beat faster. He thought about something and looked at his heart. Inside the coconut-shaped heart, there was a crow that had appeared out of nowhere. It was trying to break out of the heart's wall. If a normal person were to see this, they would probably be scared to the point where their face would turn pale, and their mind would be in a mess. What a powerful illusion! Although Xianhou had reflected the illusion, Yi Chun, who was the target, still suffered from the aftermath. I am immortal. Yi Chun did not know about illusion, nor did he cultivate it. His expression remained the same. The immortal sword soul in his sea of soul released a wisp of white holy light, covering his body. Poof! The crow in his heart suddenly disappeared. It was purely an illusion. At this moment, Gold Thug, who occupied the body of the Golden Turtle Great Ancestor, and Evil Hand, who occupied the body of the Black Fiend Emperor, seized the opportunity to attack. Gold Thug made a grabbing motion with his hand, and a dark golden machete was formed, slashing at Yi Chun. On Evil Hand's body, countless tentacles formed from evil power spread rapidly, entangling and attacking Yi Chun. Clang! Yi Chun cut the dark golden machete in half with his sword. Then the iron blood silver blue sword took advantage of the momentum and swept out. The sword ray was like a mirror, shredding all the tentacles that were entangling him. Soldiers of evil! Evil Hand sneered, and an evil halo spread out from his body. The tentacles shredded by the halo reformed, but they were no longer in the shape of tentacles. Instead, they were evil hands with a much weaker aura. Hundreds of evil hands surrounded Yi Chun and attacked Yi Chun. Chickens and dogs, I'll let you witness my true strength. The sword aura on Yi Chun's body soared. All the evil hands attacking Yi Chun were chopped into nothingness by this frightening sword aura before they could even get close. At the same time, Yi Chun raised the iron blood silver blue sword and slashed down. Poochie! A dark green sword curtain seemed as if it would pierce through the sky. Compared to before, the current merciless water and fire was much more powerful. At this moment, Yi Chun was truly using the power of the first layer of life and death realm. Rumble! The earth shook. Be it Gold Thug, Evil Hand, or the insects that were trying their best to resist his illusion, they were all sent flying. Their bodies shattered in the air, blood mist filling the air. Chapter 990. This is the first layer of life and death realm. Being inside the evil god enchantment didn't mean that Tianxia was ignorant of what was happening outside. His eyes seemed to be connected to the vague shadow above the enchantment. Whatever the shadow could see, he could also see. When Yi Chen's aura soared and shattered the bodies of Gold Fiend, and the other two, Tianxia was startled inwardly. Even his unsealing movements seemed to be somewhat affected. Life and Death Realm had a total of 9 layers. With each layer, the purity of one's Jin Yuan would increase by a large margin. This was not only an increase in one's battle power, but also in the level of one's power. It was like the difference between water and mercury. As an expert of evil spirit race, Tianxia himself was also a great expert of life and death realm. However, due to the suppression of Elysium, he could only exert his strength to the 4th layer. Moreover, his origin had suffered quite a bit of damage. Cracks had appeared on his Dao Gate, which led to it being sealed. He had only managed to break free in recent days. After countless years, his aura had been branded with Elysium's aura, and he had also possessed Nirvana Demon Emperor's body. Thus, Elysium's suppression on him wasn't as strong as before. However, only his origin had recovered, and his realm was still suppressed by 2 layers. At present, he was merely at the unharmed 4th layer of life and death realm. Moreover, since he had yet to familiarize himself with Nirvana Demon Emperor's body, he could only display 70 to 80% of his battle power. Therefore, after breaking free, Tianxia didn't dare to immediately start a massacre and slaughter the kings of Elysium. He knew that with his current strength, it was still not enough for him to jump around. However, the fact that Yi Chun had reached the 1st sky of life and death realm made him feel extremely uneasy. The reason why the evil spirit race and the demons sealed the entrance of Elysium was to limit the lifespan of Elysium's kings to 1,000 years, making it impossible for them to increase their cultivation base. However, in every generation, a peerless character would appear in Elysium. These peerless characters could break through the shackles and cultivate to the 1st, or even the 2nd layer of life and death realm, greatly increasing their battle power and energy recovery speed, allowing them to contend with 5th layer life and death realm experts. These people's achievements in martial arts and martial will would be extremely frightening even in the outside world, not to mention the small Elysium. Otherwise, how could they fight above their realm? They had been fighting for so many years without gaining the upper hand. Yi Chen had entered the 1st sky of life and death realm. Didn't this mean that he was this era's peerless character, and had the potential to turn the situation around? With his current 1st sky of life and death realm, I'm afraid his strength is not below mine. It seems like only by undoing the seal, and letting Lord Evil Wind escape, can we thoroughly deal with him together. Lord Evil Wind inside the blood seal was even stronger than him. He was a 7th sky of life and death realm expert. Even if his realm was suppressed by Elysium, he could still erupt with the battle power of a 5th sky of life and death realm expert. However, it was unknown how much power he had left after being sealed for 10,000 years. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Tianxia concentrated even more on condensing symbols and eroding the blood seal. Outside the evil god enchantment, Gold Thug, 1,000 Bugs, and Evil Hand were chopped into pieces by Yi Chen's sword. Before the blood mist could disperse, it was caught up by the domineering green radiance, turning into nothingness. Undead Evil River. Suddenly, a river of evil energy condensed from the surrounding mist and rushed over, drowning the green light and wrapping a blurry dark golden shadow inside. It was Gold Thug. Gold Thug's cultivation base was much denser than 1,000 Bugs and Evil Hand. At the crucial moment, he used an evil art, drawing the boundless evil power from the fog to replenish himself. Demonic Flower absorb. Seeing this, Demon Flower Emperor waved his palm, and a black demonic flower rapidly enlarged, intercepting the evil river. The frightening evil power poured into the demonic flower, which couldn't absorb so much evil power in a short time. Thus, it couldn't help but expand from the size of a house to the size of a mountain. 8 trigrams extermination. Yi Chen's eyes were ice cold as he raised his left index and middle fingers, pointing at Gold Thug. Buzz! The Sky Scorpio sword unsheathed itself and divided into 8, which then turned into 64. forming an 8-trigram sword array filled with the aura of extermination. It swept toward Gold Thug, not giving him any chance. Gold Thug was extremely weak at this moment. Although he had a portion of the evil power to replenish himself, how could he convert it all into his own power? He was instantly swept into the 8-trigram sword array and turned into nothingness. Clang! Returning the Sky Scorpio sword to its sheath, Yi Chun looked at the evil god enchantment. Let me try out this enchantment's defense first. The demonic flower had absorbed too much evil power. The demon flower emperor's left and right hands each held a demonic light sphere. The sphere on his right hand had already reached 1 meter in diameter, and its powerful demonic ripples even caused the surrounding fog to disperse. With a swish, the demon flower emperor's right hand shot out, and the demonic light sphere shot toward the evil god enchantment. Inside the evil god enchantment, Tianxia coldly watched and snorted inwardly. As long as the upper great evil power crystal's energy hasn't been exhausted, even if your strength had doubled, you still wouldn't be able to break the evil god enchantment. Evil power crystals were on the same level as Zhen Yuan crystals. Low-rank ones could only be easily condensed by evil spirit kings at the first sky of life and death realm. Mid-rank ones would need to be at the 4th sky of life and death realm, while top-rank ones would need to be at the 7th sky of life and death realm. Any top-rank evil power crystal contained an astonishing evil power, and its quality was extremely high. Although the evil god enchantment that used top-rank evil power crystals might not necessarily need to be at the 7th sky of life and death realm to be broken, it would at least need to be at the 5th sky of life and death realm. As expected, when the demonic light sphere struck the evil god enchantment, apart from creating a small ripple, it didn't shake the enchantment in the slightest. The demon flower emperor's complexion remained unchanged. Just as she threw out the demonic light sphere in her right hand, the one in her left hand followed right after. At the same time, a new demonic light sphere appeared in her right hand. Since she couldn't break the evil god enchantment in one strike, the demon flower emperor didn't believe that 10 or even 100 strikes wouldn't have the same effect. In any case, these demonic light spheres were transformed from the evil power, and they seemed to be endless. Her own consumption wasn't that great, and she could maintain it for a very long time. Mysterious Tao, heaven and earth reversal. Xianhou also knew that this was a crucial moment. If they couldn't break the evil god enchantment before the blood seal was lifted, they would have to face 2 powerful enemies. Her hands rapidly formed seals, and an even larger ancient gate appeared, covering the indistinct image above the evil god enchantment. That indistinct image didn't have any consciousness, and allowed the ancient gate to envelop it. Buzz! After being struck by the demonic light sphere dozens of times, the evil god enchantment, which was still as stable as Mount Tai, suddenly started to tremble. The mirror-like surface of the enchantment began to distort at an astonishing frequency. You actually want to reverse the structure of the evil god enchantment. Tianxia's anger soared to the sky. Runes condensed in his right hand, eroding the blood seal, while his left hand shot out an evil art, pouring it into the indistinct image above the enchantment. You disobeyed me, so you must die. The indistinct image's body lightly trembled, and the ancient gate shattered into thousands of pieces. The reversal power also disappeared. Puff! The ancient gate, which was connected to their minds, shattered. Xianhou instantly spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face turned pale. This enchantment's power is too strong. Unless I can reach the next level, I won't be able to shake it. Xianhou sat cross-legged on the ground, and her aura surged. Devil's flower, devour heaven and earth. The demon flower emperor was truly enraged. He no longer used demonic light spheres to attack the evil god enchantment. Instead, he sent the devil's flower over, intending to use it to absorb the enchantment's power. Overestimating yourself. The indistinct image couldn't attack, but that didn't mean it would passively take a beating. The moment the devil's flower flew over, it was torn into 2. Evil flames burned, and the devil's flower turned into ashes. Seniors, leave the rest to me. In front of absolute defense, only absolute power could break it. Of course, if one's technique reached an earth-shattering level, they could also break it. Unfortunately, powerful techniques also needed time to accumulate. Xianhe wasn't old, and it was already very rare for her to have such achievements. In reality, Yichun was very clear that although Xuanhe's battle power was inferior to his, in terms of achievements, she wasn't inferior to him by much. The main reason was that the profound Tao was all-encompassing and involved too many things. It consumed a lot of energy. If Xianhe was like him and walked the path of pure martial arts, her battle power would definitely be much higher than now. Everyone had their own pursuits. Yichun pursued the pinnacle of the martial Tao and the pinnacle of the sword Tao. As for Xianhe, her pursuits were probably the profound mysteries of heaven and earth. The Earth Fiend sword art had long been executed. The reason why Yichun didn't make a move earlier was because he was absorbing the Earth Origin Baneful Qi. The more Earth Origin Baneful Qi the Earth Fiend sword art contained, the stronger its might would be. There wasn't much time left. Yichun had to break the enchantment in one sword strike and interrupt the opponent's unsealing action. Strands, strands, strands. The huge purple sword that entered the ground was rapidly dyed black. Boundless Earth Origin Baneful Qi surged over from all directions, rushing into the huge black sword. I wonder how powerful the Earth Fiend sword art's ultimate might is. With their minds connected, Yichun could feel that the current black sword's might was several times stronger than when it was used against Su King. Furthermore, it was still increasing rapidly. What is he doing? Tianxia sensed something was wrong. It's about time. When the huge black sword started to distort and the energy started to become unstable, Yichun made a prompt decision and pushed the huge black sword out of the ground. Go! With a finger movement, the huge black sword carried boundless baneful qi and attacked the heretical god barrier. With a pull, the blurry figure on the heretical god barrier suddenly stretched out his right hand and sent a palm strike at the huge black sword. However, the heretical god barrier's power was mostly used for defense. The blurry figure could only use less than 10% of its power. How could it contend against the huge black sword? His palm was directly destroyed by the sword. Pooh! In the next moment, the huge black sword pierced through the heretical god barrier and shot towards Tianxia. Boom! At this moment, the blood seal that had been corroded by 4/5 of the heretical god barrier suddenly broke. A palm that was completely condensed from evil energy grabbed the huge black sword. Tianxia, I'll have to trouble you. A sinister voice rang out. Chapter 991. It can actually grab the Earth Fiend sword condensed from the Earth Fiend sword art. Yichun's brows couldn't help but crease. The fact that the gigantic Earth Fiend sword could break through the heretic god barrier was within his expectations. After all, the heretic god barrier had been bombarded by the Devil Flower Sovereign before, and its structure had been distorted by the mysterious Empress with her profound Tao. It seemed to be undamaged, but there were already signs of instability. Otherwise, there would be no need for the evil spirit race experts who had occupied the Terminator Demon Emperor's body to activate the blurry phantom image above the heretic god barrier. As for his Earth Fiend sword art, it had absorbed enough Earth Fiend evil qi, and its might had reached a level that even he couldn't control. Breaking the enchantment with one strike was naturally a matter of course. However, the evil power condensed into a huge hand grabbing the Earth Fiend sword was beyond his expectations. Although the Earth Fiend sword had already consumed a large amount of energy to shatter the vague hand and penetrate the evil god enchantment, grabbing and blocking were not on the same level. Grabbing meant that it still had energy left, while blocking meant that it had gone all out. Clang! Yichun's soul power was not something that ordinary people could compare with after all. With a thought, the Earth Fiend huge sword was like a sharp saw that could cut open mountains and the ground. It sliced forward violently, and the huge hand formed by the evil power was cut in half, losing its control over the Earth Fiend huge sword. Not good. After the evil hand was cut in half, the remaining might of the Earth Fiend sword could not be underestimated. It furiously slashed toward Tianxia, and the incomparably frightening evil qi combined with the destructive sword intent could almost cut through a person's soul. However, Tianxia was at the 4th layer of life and death realm. Even if he could only display 70 to 80% of his battle power in the Nirvana Demon Emperor's body, it was still not something Su King could compare to. His right hand suddenly clenched into a fist, heavily bombarding the Earth Fiend's sword with a biting cold evil chi. Clang! The Earth Fiend's sword was blasted away, and Tianxie himself also retreated 10 steps with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. I'm afraid we won't be able to resolve this peacefully today. Yi Chen sighed inwardly as the Earth Fiend's gigantic sword entered the ground. Not to mention the evil spirit powerhouse that was about to escape. Just the person who had occupied the Nirvana Demon Emperor's body was not someone who could be easily defeated. The other party's punch just now was extremely domineering, filled with killing intent and evil. It was clearly an extremely powerful martial art. However, this martial art was unique to the evil spirit race. It was completely different from the martial arts of Elysium. Crackle! Bang! In this short instant, the blood seal first shattered into thousands of pieces, then turned into nothingness. A ferocious tiger coming out of its cage, and the gates of hell opened erupted like a volcano. The frightening movement caused the entire True Water Palace ruins to tremble. The outer seal flickered, and from time to time, some of the weaker seals dissipated into thin air, blown away by the frightening evil wind. If not for the seal formed by countless Yuan characters, a huge hole would have appeared in the energy barrier of the True Water Palace ruins, causing endless seawater to pour in. At that time, even if Yi Chen and the rest could travel through the void, they would still suffer some injuries. Ha ha ha, I, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor, have finally escaped. Who in the world can be my opponent? The fierce evil wind rotated and compressed at high speed, condensing into a human figure. This person was tall, wearing a blue Taoist robe. Although he was not young, looking to be in his 50s or 60s, he gave people a very strange temperament, as if he was a Taoist expert. However, his eyes ruined the whole feeling. A trace of a mysterious gaze drifted around, and anyone who was looked at by him would feel as if they were being stared at by a poisonous snake, unable to sleep at night. Welcome, Lord Yin Wind. Tianxie's face revealed a happy expression. From the momentum just now, even if the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's strength was not even 30% of his peak, it was still much stronger than him. One day, he would obtain a treasure to replenish his essence chi, and his strength would definitely reach the peak. As long as a peerless figure like the Yuan Emperor did not appear, he would be invincible in the world. Sure enough, True Water Emperor's body was already possessed by an evil spirit race's expert. The speaker was Yuan Emperor. Although the painting was in his storage ring, Yuan Emperor and Yi Chen's minds were connected. What Yi Chen could see, Yuan Emperor could also see. At this moment, seeing the other's appearance, Yuan Emperor's voice resounded in Yi Chen's mind, sighing incessantly. Since this person has already possessed True Water Emperor's body, who sealed him, and even buried the entire True Water Palace's king, leading to the destruction of True Water Palace? Yi Chen was puzzled. Yuan Emperor said. Although the nature of that blood seal was different from True Water Emperor's Blue Ocean seal, upon careful observation, it was actually a change in the nature of the same form. Yi Chen's mind was clear, and he suddenly said, so it seems that the one who sealed the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor was True Water Emperor himself. Although True Water Emperor's body was possessed, it was only his body, and his soul still had its own consciousness. He knew that his consciousness would be devoured by the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor, so in order to avoid harming Elysium, he used a method to seal himself. The reason why he didn't use his own Blue Ocean seal was probably because it was closely related to him, and he was afraid that it wouldn't be able to trap him. Therefore, he used an extremely sinister seal, sealing himself at the cost of many True Water Palace's king. That should be the case. Yi Chen's reasoning was the same as Yuan Emperor's. Knowing the truth of the matter, Yi Chen was filled with emotion. What True Water Emperor did was undoubtedly sacrificing himself for the greater good. He sealed himself at the cost of the destruction of True Water Palace, so that Elysium could avoid disaster. Although such an act was too cruel and ruthless for the people of True Water Palace, it was a great concern for the people of the world. Not only True Water Emperor, but also countless emperors throughout the ages would rather sacrifice themselves to protect everything they wanted to protect for Elysium and the people of the world. Among them, there were high and low achievements, but they were all great. It was because of their existence that Elysium could survive to this day and not be enslaved by foreign races. Sigh. In fact, he didn't have to do this. With my strength back then, I was worried about not having a worthy opponent. How could I be afraid of a mere Wind demonic emperor? For a peerless character like Yuan Emperor, if he couldn't leave Elysium, the stronger the enemy, the stronger his battle intent would be. In the later stages of his life, in order to find an opponent, he had barged into death's door dozens of times. Each time, he was able to escape unscathed. Even the most serious time, he only suffered a light injury. Nobody knew what True Water Emperor was thinking at that time. Perhaps he thought that Yuan Emperor shouldn't have been put in danger. If Yuan Emperor lost, he would at most die. But if Elysium lost, it would be beyond redemption. Peerless characters of every generation seemed to involve luck. Once luck was lost, it would be hard to condense again in a short period of time, making it impossible for a new peerless character to appear. First Sky of Life and Death Realm. It seems like you are the top warrior of this generation of Elysium. If I kill you, Elysium will not have the power to fight anymore. Wind demonic emperor sensed Yi Chen's cultivation base, and after a slight shock his face turned into ecstasy. Back then, he was only able to possess True Water Emperor's body, because the latter had forcefully barged into the path of death, and suffered an injury to his soul. Otherwise, even if his strength was higher than True Water Emperor's, he wouldn't have been able to succeed. It should be known that possession was a double-edged sword. If he failed, he would die trying. After occupying the body of the Emperor of True Water, the Emperor of Wind hid himself for 10,000 years. He wanted to devour the soul of the Emperor of True Water, so that his strength could reach a higher level. Then, he could fight against the primitive Emperor, who seemed to be more powerful than the Emperor of True Water. Unfortunately, at the critical moment, the soul of the Emperor of True Water came back to life and occupied the dominant position. He sealed himself for 15,000 years at the cost of blood. Now that he was free, the endless seal made him thirsty for battle. Even if his current strength was only 20 to 30% of his peak, the current Yi Chen didn't even have 1/5 of Yuan Emperor's strength. Killing him wouldn't be too difficult. Killing you will mean one less peerless expert in the great calamity of the foreign races. Not to mention that Wind Evil Emperor wanted to kill him. Yi Chen didn't intend to return empty-handed. Whether it was Tianxia or Wind Evil Emperor, they were both targets he wanted to kill. He couldn't imagine what it would be like if his strength was restored to its peak. Instead of waiting for that day to come, it would be better to end it early. Good confidence. Unfortunately, confidence can't bring you victory. Tianxia, don't do it. I'll fight him first. Wind Evil Emperor wasn't a righteous person. He didn't let Tianxia do it now, because he was confident that he could defeat Yi Chen. If he really couldn't defeat Yi Chen, it wouldn't be too late for him to take action. Saber. After saying this, the Wind demonic emperor waved his right hand, and at the original location of the blood-colored seal, an evil weapon with dense evil qi broke out of the ground and fell into his hand. You're a swordsman, and I'm also a blade expert of the evil spirit clan. Today, I'll use my 100 battles evil saber to kill you. With the evil saber in his hand, the Wind demonic emperor's body burst forth with an extremely evil and tyrannical saber force. Under the guidance of this saber force, his entire person seemed to have turned into a saber, an evil saber that could behead souls. Block my sword first, then we'll talk. Under the ground, a huge black sword shot out. The boundless earth Yuan evil qi was restrained by the destruction sword intent, and became extremely condensed. As soon as the sword was thrown out, the space was cut open, and a pitch-black crack appeared in the air. Qi. Under the stimulation of Yi Chen's soul power, the Earth Fiend huge sword was as fast as the aurora. Even with Wind Evil Emperor's perception, he couldn't dodge it in an instant. Wind Evil Emperor was shocked and angry at the same time. Previously, although he had grabbed the Earth Fiend huge sword, It was because the Earth Fiend's huge sword had shattered the blurry phantom's palm and pierced through the evil god enchantment, which consumed more than half of its power. If he had known that the Earth Fiend's huge sword was so powerful, he wouldn't have given Yi Chen any time to prepare his attack. Moon has waxing and waning. The Yin demonic emperor let out a roar. He raised his evil blade with both hands and slashed at the Earth Fiend's gigantic sword. The gray blade screen in the void evolved into a fragmented bright moon, which contained the transformation of Yin and Yang. The blade energy seemed fragmented, but it was incomparably ferocious. It was like a person who was born with a disability and had been bullied and bullied, with a twisted hatred in his heart. Chapter 992. Clang. The demonic saber and the earthly fiend gigantic sword collided with each other in the most violent manner. For a moment, sparks flew in all directions, forming a line, gushing and exploding in the strangest manner. It was as if the order of space had been disrupted. The transfer of power became bizarre and motley, and no one could even think of seeing the complete trajectory. Puff! A mouthful of cold blood spurted out, and the Yin demonic emperor was sent flying backward by the huge Earth Fiend sword, and suddenly disappeared into the distant fog. The huge Earth Fiend sword paused for a moment, and then slashed forward at a speed several times faster than the opponent. Wherever it went, a thick sword mark appeared on the ground, and the fog was split apart. Anything that blocked this sword was torn apart in a destructive manner. Raging sea waves. Although the Yin demonic emperor was sent flying, the moment he landed on the ground, he immediately raised his saber and attacked again. This time, although the saber energy was not as ferocious as the last time, it was more and more violent, like monstrous raging waves unceasing. As a saber expert of the evil spirit race, the Yin demonic emperor's research on techniques was very profound. The power of the Earth Fiend giant sword seemed to be invincible, but a part of it had already been offset by his most ferocious full moon, and the remaining power was less than 80% of its original power. It just happened to be continuous power, and the saber energy was stronger than the previous one. Clang 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 clang. After the first saber hit the Earth Fiend giant sword, the Yin demonic emperor immediately sent out the second saber, the third saber. The saber speed was getting faster and faster, as if there was no end, and in an instant, a total of 17 saber strikes hit the Earth Fiend giant sword. Bang! The 18th saber strike was sent out, and the Earth Fiend giant sword was sent flying, but the Yin demonic emperor was also not good. The first 17 saber strikes he was not unscathed, but he knew that he could not retreat now. Once he retreated, the saber energy would be thwarted, and he would no longer be able to stop the advance of the Earth Fiend giant sword, and he would inevitably be pierced by the sword. After the Earth Fiend giant sword was sent flying, the Yin demonic emperor finally could not suppress the injury, and his arms exploded inch by inch, and a bloody hole appeared in his chest. It turned out that although the Earth Fiend giant sword failed to attack the body of the Yin demonic emperor, but the invincible sword energy had already passed to him. If it was not for the raging sea waves of the Yin demonic emperor and the continuous saber energy, this sword could have seriously injured the Yin demonic emperor. Good sword control technique. The Yin demonic emperor's face turned pale, and his eyes emitted a blazing, eerie killing intent. Same here. To be honest, the Yin demonic emperor's saber art wasn't anything special. Although it had a profound meaning and was incomparably tyrannical, it hadn't been fully mastered yet. It could only be used to scare those whose martial arts realm was lower than his. However, the Yin demonic emperor's evil energy was powerful, and his evil will was also incomparably mysterious. He was able to unleash this saber art to an extremely ferocious level. I just don't know if you'll be able to unleash such a sword strike again. How could the Yin demonic emperor not see that this imperial sword technique needed to absorb the Earth origin evil chi underground? If there was no Earth origin evil chi, he could easily break this move with a casual slash. And since he knew the weakness of this sword technique, how could he give Yi Chen the opportunity to absorb the Earth origin evil chi? Let's wait and see. Yi Chen reached out his hand, and the huge purple sword disintegrated in the air, turning into a purple longsword and falling into his hand. The reason why he was able to injure the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor with the Earth Fiend sword technique was because the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor didn't understand the Earth Fiend sword technique. But now that the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor knew the weakness of the Earth Fiend sword technique, he obviously wouldn't give him the opportunity to accumulate power. It should be known that the reason why he could injure Su King with this move was because Su King's battle strength was inferior to his. He could use the Earth Fiend sword technique to absorb the Earth Origin evil chi while fighting. However, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor wasn't someone that could be compared to Su King. Judging from the fact that the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor could barely resist the Earth Fiend sword technique, his battle strength was several times higher than Su King's. Without the Sky Scorpio sword, Yi Chen was absolutely not the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's opponent. Once he used the Earth Fiend sword technique to absorb the Earth Origin evil chi, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor would definitely heavily injure or even kill him. At that time, the Earth Fiend sword technique would collapse by itself, unless he had a second supreme grade sword. After all, how could the Iron Blood Silver Blue sword compare to a supreme grade sword? Therefore, only with the Sky Scorpio sword in his hand could Yi Chen have the power to fight. As for the Earth Fiend sword technique performed by the Sky Scorpio sword, he naturally couldn't use it. The Earth Fiend sword technique performed by the Iron Blood Silver Blue sword was useless. Good. Let's see how you will receive my moon has imperfection this time. The Yin Wind Demonic Emperor roared. His body turned into a blade light, and the blade followed him. The mournful gray blade light formed a broken moon between the two, and the gap was facing Yi Chen's direction. Facing the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's brutal blade, Yi Chen's eyes turned solemn, but his hands weren't slow. No, his hands' movements had reached the pinnacle. Obviously, it was the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor who attacked first, but when the blade light swept over, it became Yi Chen who attacked first, directly attacking the gap of the blade light. Clang! As the blade and sword collided, a dark green flame burst out, accompanied by an incomparably soft and sharp aura. Yi Chen's merciless water and fire was forcibly twisted into strands by the opponent's blade light, and the sword energy couldn't advance even an inch. As for himself, blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth, and he had to retreat 8 steps before he could neutralize the blade energy. The reason why the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor couldn't follow up with another attack was not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't, because he had also taken 3 steps back. This sword attack of Yi Chen contained the sword energy of the fusion of water and fire, which had a destructive explosive power. The realm of his sword art was unimaginably high, but what really shocked him wasn't Yi Chen's sword art. After all, no matter how powerful his sword art was, if the foundation was too weak, it would be useless. What shocked him was that he was the one who attacked first. But in the end, he was the one who attacked first. Yi Chen didn't wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. Although the opponent's blade energy shook his blood and chi, it still couldn't hurt him. And with the realm of no sword in hand and no sword in heart, it was enough to attack first, so that the opponent's blade energy could only be displayed at 70 to 80%. In other words, the attack power of Yi Chen was actually a lot weaker than that of the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor. The reason why he could force the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor to retreat 3 steps with 1 strike was because of the high realm of his sword art. Sometimes a high attack power might not be able to display all of it. Damn, take my raging sea waves again. The Yin Wind Demonic Emperor hated the experts of Elysium very much. These people's foundation was not as good as his, but for some reason, each of them had a very high realm of martial arts. When he took over the body of Emperor True Water, he had a terrible battle with him, but at that time, Emperor True Water's soul was injured, and his combat power could only be displayed at most 80%. Originally, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor thought that he could easily injure Emperor True Water again, and then take over the body of Emperor True Water. Unexpectedly, although Emperor True Water's combat power was not as good as his, but with his high realm of martial arts, he fought with him for a day and a night. Finally, He was exhausted and lost the power to resist, which was a shame for him. The most humiliating thing was that Emperor True Water lost the power to resist, and he was also seriously injured. Otherwise, he would not have been dormant for 10,000 years and wasted so much time. Now, Yi Chen's foundation was much worse than that of Emperor True Water, and his realm of martial arts was far less than that of Emperor True Water. But in terms of sword art, he had reached that level, and even surpassed it. The moon's waxing and waning focused on ferocity and strength. The raging sea waves, in terms of ferocity, were not as ferocious as the moon's waxing and waning, but in terms of continuous blade energy, it was more than 10 times that of the moon's waxing and waning. Yin Wen Demonic Emperor was afraid of Yi Chen's realm of sword art, so he planned to use speed to drown Yi Chen with wave after wave of blade energy. He did not believe that Yi Chen could break the raging sea waves cleanly. In the distance, Xianhou and Demon Flower Emperor were adjusting their breathing while watching the battle. At the same time, they were on guard against Tianxia. Once Tianxia made a move, they would definitely join the battle. They were very clear in their hearts that this was the decisive battle between Yin Wen Demonic Emperor and Yi Chen. If they rashly made a move, not only would they weaken Yi Chen's momentum, but they would also be more of a help. Any casual strike of Yin Wen Demonic Emperor could seriously injure them. When the difference in combat strength was too great, skills, and so on were useless. Seeing the boundless blade energy slashing towards Yi Chen, Demon Flower Emperor, and Xianhou couldn't help feeling their hearts tighten. It was not that they did not trust Yi Chen, but the Yin Wen Demonic Emperor was not an ordinary person. This was a demon that had once wreaked havoc in Elysium. If the Yin Wen Demonic Emperor was a raging wave, then Yi Chen was a small boat in this raging wave. Although he relied on his skills to prevent the small boat from being submerged, this situation was too dangerous. If he was the slightest bit careless, the boat would be destroyed and he would die. Such a pity, a peerless character. If you want to blame something, blame yourself for not having enough time. Tianxia's fear of Yi Chen was even greater than that of the Yin Wen Demonic Emperor. After devouring the Nirvana Demon Emperor's soul, he had obtained the majority of the Nirvana Demon Emperor's memories. Naturally, he knew everything about Yi Chen. He had to admit that if given enough time, Yi Chen's radiance would be enough to illuminate the past and present. Even those peerless characters who had died might not be able to catch up to him. The evil berserk, world-beheading blade energy swept over. But Yi Chen's expression didn't change. Perhaps, to him, fighting had already become his life. Stepping onto the peak of the martial Tao, the peak of the sword Tao, was his mission. Even if the heavens fell and the earth split apart, or the doomsday descended, he wouldn't panic. Swish! The Sky Scorpio sword struck out, and an astonishing scene occurred. Yi Chen's body was like a phantom. As soon as the sword struck out, countless figures appeared. Each of Yi Chen's movements were different. They either leaped up, turned sideways, lowered their center of gravity, or flashed. In an instant, countless sword lights rushed into the raging sea of blade energy. Swish! The boundless blade energy shattered, and the numerous Yi Chens merged back into one. How is this possible? The Yin Wen Demonic Emperor forgot to continue attacking. The shock that Yi Chen had brought him went straight to his soul. As the one who had started the raging sea, he was very clear that each of Yi Chen's sword attacks was aimed at the weak points of the raging sea. The sky-high waves seemed unstoppable, but they contained countless changes in power. In a split second, Yi Chen had destroyed all the power within them. Without the support of power, the sky-high waves instantly collapsed. Although their remaining momentum was still fierce and unstoppable, they had already lost their momentum. Chapter 993. With a sword in one's heart. It was hard to avoid mistakes, because the human heart was not perfect. Without a sword in one's heart, one would be able to achieve true precision and perfection, just like how you cared about something. But if you cared about it too much, you would lose your original judgment. Being without a sword in one's heart didn't mean giving up on the sword. It was just fusing the sword into one's blood and spirit, becoming a part of oneself. Originally, Yi Chen had only comprehended the state of being without a sword in one's heart. But under the pressure of Yin Wind Demonic Emperor, Yi Chen's body instinctively moved. In other words, taking out the sword had already become his instinct, without the need to think in his heart. At this moment, the thoughts in his heart could no longer keep up with Yi Chen's instinct. Raging Evil Chop. Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's famous blade art was the Yin Wind 6 spells, and this was the third style. Compared to Full Moon, this move was not only brutal, but also had a lawless arrogance. Compared to Raging Sea Waves, this move's violence was purer and more direct. The Yin Wind 6 spells could be said to be the combination of 6 sets of blade arts, and each style was the strongest move of the set. Boom! Amidst the earth-shattering noise, a sharp saber light extended out. The farther the distance, the longer the saber light became. It seemed like it could be stretched infinitely, and with the most violent manner, it slashed at the enemy. Since the move was not exquisite enough, then he would use absolute blade energy to crush the opponent. Guarding sword like a mountain, Yi Chen did not blindly attack. The opponent's blade energy had already reached the point of ignoring the flaws. Even if he could hit the flaws, the remaining blade energy would be enough to heavily injure him. Holding the Sky Scorpio sword with both of his hands, Yi Chen let out a low roar. His entire body's sword energy soared as he fiercely stabbed the sword into the ground. In the next moment, the berserk sword energy, with Yi Chen as the center, erupted upwards. Because the sword energy erupted too fast, when it reached the highest point, it slowed down again, causing a large amount of sword energy to stack up, continuously compressing and solidifying, eventually condensing into a towering mountain phantom. The cliff was overflowing with greenery. Kacha! The sharp blade light fiercely slashed on the illusory mountain peak, splashing up countless illusory stones. Compared to real stones, these illusory stones were many times harder. Even steel and iron couldn't compare. After this strike, although the illusory sword-shaped mountain peak was covered with cracks, it wasn't cut into two. Defensive sword move. It wasn't that the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor hadn't seen defensive sword moves before, but those were all old antiques who had lived for thousands of years. His evil spirit race had experts who had created defensive sword moves. But how old was Yi Chen? Yi Chen's blood and qi were boiling, but he didn't move at all. This move was a defensive sword move that he had created in the past year, and it contained both Earth Profound and Wood Profound. For a sword artist, it was good to be aggressive, but it didn't mean that he could only attack and not defend. When there was a huge difference in strength between him and the enemy, a defensive sword move was the only chance to turn the situation around, because only by staying alive could he counterattack. Let's see how many of my attacks you can block. The Yin Wind Demonic Emperor no longer wasted his energy on being surprised. There was only one thought left in his mind, and that was to kill Yi Chen. The sharp blade light was like a violent storm, crazily slashing towards the illusory mountain peak. Every time it slashed, it would expand the cracks on it, and even if Yi Chen used all his strength to repair the cracks, he still couldn't offset this destructive speed. Break for me! Seeing that the illusory mountain peak was about to collapse, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's evil force surged, and he slashed out the fourth move of the Yin Wind art, Yin Wind Wavebreaker. In silence, the illusory mountain peak was split into two, and the bone-piercing blade light was like a cold wind sweeping over the sea, sweeping towards Yi Chen. This was the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's killing move, and it was also the moment for Yi Chen to counterattack. The moment the illusory mountain peak was shattered, Yi Chen's killing move had already finished accumulating power. He pulled out the Sky Scorpio sword from the ground, and with a slanted slash, a dazzling light burst out. The moment the light burst out, the space within several meters suddenly became still. The blade energy that the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor had sent out was blurry like a cold wind. But after the space became still, the cold wind rapidly condensed, turning into a transparent, gray blade light that was as thin as a cicada's wing. Just like that, it froze in front of Yi Chen. At the same time, Yi Chen's Sky Scorpio sword slowly pierced towards the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor. The light it emitted was distorted, as if it had entered a kaleidoscope. The third move of the heaven-shattering sword arts, Momentary Brilliance. No, The Wind demonic emperor roared inwardly. He could feel that the closer he got to the tip of Yi Chen's sword, the greater the void pressure he felt. This void pressure did not only affect his outer appearance, but also his thoughts. From the inside to the outside, he couldn't move a single inch. His blood stopped flowing, Zhen Yuan stopped flowing, and even the most basic particles of flesh and blood stopped moving. As if a year had passed, or just a moment, Yi Chen's Sky Scorpio sword slowly sank into the Wind demonic emperor's heart. In the next moment, the space returned to normal, and Yi Chen's movement was released. The tip of the sword came out of the Wind demonic emperor's back, creating a bloody hole on his chest and back. At the same time, the gray-colored blade light in the void cut through Yi Chen's left shoulder. The blood was frozen like ice, and not a single drop of blood splashed out. Pulling out the sword, Yi Chen's figure flashed, and he retreated. Along the way, he vomited several mouthfuls of blood. This blood was brimming with vitality, and contained rich life yuan qi. What was life yuan qi? Specifically speaking, it was lifespan. After vomiting several mouthfuls of blood filled with life yuan qi, Yi Chen didn't know how many years of lifespan he had lost. At least he felt that something was missing. Wah! Standing still, the Wind demonic emperor wanted to vomit blood, but he found that he couldn't vomit anything. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels, as well as his chest bones, were all devoured by this sword. The Wind demonic emperor's eyes were filled with shock and anger, and there was a vague fear that he couldn't get rid of. This sword had brought him too much of a threat. Under this sword, at least 1/3 of the evil power in his body had been annihilated. Countless sword chi was roaming inside his body, and he couldn't get rid of it in a short time. He could only use his own evil power to resist. How could there be such a fast sword? I couldn't even see the process. Demon Flower Emperor sucked in a breath of cold air. She wasn't the Wind demonic emperor, and from her angle, she didn't see the space freeze. She only saw a dazzling light flash, so fast that she thought she was hallucinating. This is the advanced use of space profound. Xuanho's eyes had never been so serious. That flash of image kept appearing in her mind, and she tried to analyze it. What sword art is this? Tianxia's nerves were stretched taut. That flash was too short, and he couldn't react at all. He only knew that after Yi Chen's defense was broken, the two separated again. Tianxia was heavily injured, and Yi Chen lost an arm. The hand holding the Sky Scorpio sword faintly trembled as he panted heavily. That sword strike just now was his greatest achievement in the past year. It was called Split Second of Glory. Split Moment of Glory contained the space profound, but it wasn't perfect, nor was it great completion. It was still at 70% space profound. The higher the level of space profound, the harder it was to progress, as if it had reached a bottleneck. In the past, Yi Chen thought that the sword move created with 70% space profound couldn't surpass the sword move created with 2 great completion profounds. However, he soon realized that he was wrong. From the very beginning, he had made a mistake. Space profound was vast and profound, and no other profounds could compare to it. Without exaggerating, an ordinary profound couldn't even compare to 1/10 of it. The reason why the sword move he created couldn't keep up with his progress was because of the problem of application. Space profound was hard to comprehend, and application was even harder. The first style of heaven-shattering sword arts, bewitching mirror shattering, and the second style, orbital slaughter, could only be considered low-level application. It was the most superficial understanding, just like how one would think of a golden mountain as an ordinary mountain. Therefore, although they were both 70% profound, Split Moment of Glory was 10 times more exquisite than the second style of heaven-shattering sword arts, orbital slaughter. The two simply weren't on the same level. As he dug deeper into the space profound, Yi Chen vaguely felt that 4 Extreme Emperor's space profound most likely hadn't reached great completion, perhaps only at 80%. Yi Chen thought that 4 Extreme Emperor's space profound had reached great completion, or else he wouldn't have been able to form the foundation of space profound. Space profound contains all kinds of energy profounds. This is an inexhaustible mountain of gold. Even if I only know space profound in this life, I will still be able to advance. Yi Chen sighed inwardly. Regarding split moment of glory, Yi Chen was very satisfied. However, he also knew that it was just in its embryonic form, and its effective range was very small, only several zhang. Even so, he had already suffered a huge backlash. He could use the low-level application of space profound as many times as he wanted, but the backlash from split moment of glory wasn't something ordinary people could endure, because the price of the backlash was the loss of their life. It was just like a mortal using the power of a god, causing a backlash. The reason why he didn't use split moment of glory to deal with the Yin Wind demonic emperor was precisely because of the problem of effective range. The distance between the two was too far, and the frozen space effect of split moment of glory couldn't affect the Yin Wind demonic emperor. The battle between the two was too fast, and there was no way for Yi Chen to successfully use split moment of glory. Therefore, Yi Chen could only first use defensive sword like a mountain to turn from offense to defense, and prepare to use split moment of glory. High-level application? Hearing Xuanho's words, the Demon Flower Emperor didn't quite understand. In terms of martial arts realm, she was countless times worse than Xianhou. Xianhou explained, time and space are both supreme profounds, and have power close to the rules. Therefore, it is very difficult to use them. Low-level application only involves the appearance, while high-level application involves the operation of the rules. Yi Chen's sword just now caused space to stand still, violating the operation of the rules.